Welcome to Big Blue Breakdown, end of the regular season edition. Your pilot, as always, the one, the only, the hated, the Matthew Lyle, joined by my co-pilot, partner in crime, Robin to my Batman, Buck Nasty the third. How you doing, Mike?
Man, the airwaves are smooth today, and I'm glad to be your co-pilot, man.
Absolutely. Smooth sailing. Because it's that time. It's March Madness.
Beautiful time of day.
The time is nigh. And now I think there is some extreme variables on the outside, but for probably the first time in a couple weeks, one of the more tangible times, Kentucky controls its own destiny once again. If we go out here, take care of business, win the SEC, I am all but confident that one seed in Louisville is locked into us. Would you agree or disagree on that, Mike?
Oh, I agree with that 100%. Even though there are some other teams that are looking really, really well, but just like what you said, is like if we go out and we play like we were in late January all through February, we'll be A-okay.
Right. Now, mind you, for people listening, don't get that misunderstood. I said we control our own destiny. Not that we're locked in. We go out here and lay a dud in the first round or lose to Tennessee or anyone. Yeah, we're back at the mercy of the committee. So, because right now, the way it looks, another thing that helped us is the fact that Duke and North Carolina, because the fact is Gonzaga and Virginia is pretty much locked in. I mean, I don't know if there's a loss bad enough that could convince them to the committee of otherwise. So that leaves Duke and North Carolina is two other viable options. Well, they have to play each other in the semifinals. So they can't meet up for a epic 6 overtime ACC championship showdown. One of those teams is going to take a quarterfinals loss. And I think if Kentucky wins the SEC, that will be it. That will be the thing, because whoever wins the ACC in that little situation, for the most part, would be slammed right in there at that fourth number one, more than likely the Midwest, whatever you're going to call Kansas City, and that would leave us in Louisville. Would you agree or different thoughts on that, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we play well in the tournament, make it to at least a semifinal, I think we'll be okay as far as a one seed goes, because when Duke and North Carolina meet up in that quarterfinal match, we've kind of gone back and forth, and like we said, it is very hard for a team to beat the same team 3 times, and I think Duke and North Carolina are going to kind of knock themselves out of that number 1 seed, because like right now North Carolina is pretty well set. I believe they're ranked 4th right now, maybe even high as 3rd. If Duke were to beat them, they would knock out Carolina. And if Zion's not in yet, I think the committee has to seed Duke accordingly, because without Zion, they aren't very good.
Now we're going to see a lot of that in the upcoming days or week, and over the next week, because all signs are pointing, at least with what they're saying, that Zion will be back for the ACC tournament. I personally would not be surprised if this isn't a ploy. If Zion has no intent on returning, and Coach K does not intend for Zion to return, you just don't say it until the committee makes their selections. Because it's easy to say, oh, Duke wouldn't have lost some of those games without Zion or with Zion, and the committee can believe that. But the moment Zion no longer comes back, the team that got busted by North Carolina twice and almost lost to Wake Forest, now that team becomes the real team. I was having this debate. A lot of people said, well, the NCAA didn't give us any leeway in 2013 with Nerlens Noel. Well, Nerlens Noel tore his ACL. So the moment he went down, that became who we were. With Zion, you can pretend there's a chance he's coming back and going to be as great as he was before he got hurt. But the moment it's decided that he's no longer playing, the losses, this team now is who you are. You can no longer talk about the team that beat Kentucky by 30. You can no longer talk about the man who dunked on half the ACC and blocked the other half. This becomes the team that they are. And if that's the case, I think that works out really well for Kentucky, because I don't think that Duke team can beat that North Carolina team, and I don't think that North Carolina team can beat that Virginia team. So you got Virginia winning the ACC, which is a best-case scenario for Kentucky.
Yeah, and I have to concur everything you said there. And I think a Virginia, as they are a very, very good, solid team, I like my chances against them in any type of Final Four situation.
Yeah, look, if you're worried about Virginia beating you've not watched much Virginia. We'll worry about Virginia and Gonzaga when we get to the Final Four, which has proven we will do more times than they will. So you're absolutely right on that, Mike. Let's backtrack just a little bit. Not too much, because our final 2 regular season games at Ole Miss, Senior Day versus Florida, no Reed Travis. They kind of expected not how you wanted them to go, but kind of how you would expect them to go, with just lackluster performances for 30 minutes. You're almost kind of hitting that regular season wall. You're getting to the bottom of the potato chip bag where there's nothing but crumbs, and you just kind of want the March Madness tournament to begin. So you kind of play down for 30 minutes, and then in the last 10 minutes you say, oh, wait, we need these wins. Let me go get these wins. And we pulled them out. Guys look good. Guys look bad. Guys look good some part of the game, look bad some part of the game, and vice versa. Any thought you had over the last week of what we saw, anything that concerns, or are you willing to be like me and just kind of wash this out to you're just kind of the final days of class?
I kind of see where you are going on that point, but my biggest concern is kind of the lack of energy that we had, or maybe the lack of like a smooth gelling team that we had with Reed Travis on the bench, and like, let's say for some crazy reason he gets in foul trouble in that first or second round game. Maybe not so much the first round game, but the second round game. Like, if he gets in foul trouble and the team just isn't playing like a smooth or like a well-oiled machine that we know they can play, I'm kind of scared of a second round upset if Reed Travis is not back, or if he gets in foul trouble early, because we've kind of shown that PJ isn't PJ with Reed on the court. Nick and EJ are still kind of trying to find their ways. When Reed Travis isn't in there and PJ isn't playing well, Tyler Hero kind of tries to force the ball a little bit, and we look like a above average team, like when Reed Travis is not in there and just PJ isn't playing well. So that's the only concern that I have in these last few games, that Reed Travis has been out and PJ has, he's gotten in foul trouble early. Like, maybe almost like he is trying to push, or like maybe press the issue too much as well, because of Reed Travis being out.
I get what you're saying. I just think it's the exact opposite. I just think these guys are getting in foul trouble because they're not paying attention. They're not incentivized to play right now, because let's be real, we've talked about this for the last 2 months. We kind of know who this team is, especially since they beat Tennessee. They beat Tennessee at home when it was a 20-point beatdown. At that point, I feel like the guys looked at themselves and said, oh, yeah, we're good. And which isn't the best mindset to have, but it's still a mindset that I think is okay. You look at any of these Kentucky teams that's been to the Final Four or even the Elite Eight, the last week of the season becomes kind of just a shutdown. Like I said, it's almost like that last week of high school. The 2014 team went down to Florida and got beat by 30, and we still made it to the Final Four. The 2015 never experienced a loss team until it was too late. Should have probably lost the last game of the second to last game of the season versus Georgia, when we were much better than them, and we were down 8 at one point with like 4 minutes to go, and we turned on the Jets and ended up winning it. Hindsight being there, I kind of wish we would have taken that loss. I think this is just a part of who these kids are. They already know. Every team that Cal has a point where they're like, well, they look at each other and they say, oh, we're really good. We can do this. And I think these kids that hit this, and to your point about a second-round loss, the only team in the second round that scares me is Syracuse, because they master that zone. That's all they do. And I don't think Reed Travis makes the difference, because Reed Travis, in that zone, it's just, can you hit shots?
Right.
And Reed Travis really doesn't hit deep shots. I mean, he's not really going to be my concern. My concern is going to be, can Tyler Hero and Keldon Johnson do what they've kind of done over the last two games and hit shots from the inside and the outside. But I won't get down that rabbit hole because, I mean,
right. Well,
it scares me. But
yeah, I mean, like I haven't looked at the other eight or nine seed teams too much because they are kind of just there.
Those always fluctuate.
Right. And so and I kind of want to add to the point. Like maybe on the inside, I am kind of glad that we struggled these last few games because spring break is here, and usually Cal and other coaches let players kind of take the week off, kind of chill. But I saw a post where the players voted where they want to be in the gym, and that kind of excites me because that means they're hungry and they know they were not playing up to standards these last few weeks.
Well, we talked about this probably 3 or 4 shows ago, and I feel like the fan base is finally getting on the wagon. You're not going to be able to have your cake and eat it both with this team. I mean, we talked about this. That this team, just what you said right there, Mike, speaks volumes to me. That instead of going home, visiting their friends, visiting their family for spring break, they want to focus on getting this job done. Because I think also there's a couple levels to it. A, they know that their path to the NBA it will be solidified by a great run.
Right.
I mean, because let's look at the guys who's going in the first round or projected to by different mock drafts. You would have Keldon Johnson, P.J. Washington, Ashton Hagans, and Tyler Hero. All 4 guys you would say are super key to a run. I think they're well aware, they're self-aware enough to know that if you win the title, which basically means you're going to have to, if they're going to have to play good to win the title, and they play good, win the title, that's going to pretty much just grease them up for a free fall up into the early top rounds or top picks of the first round. And look, Mike, I actually think because social media, nothing is hidden anymore. Everybody, the smallest fan in the world can have his voice heard if he has social media.
Right.
I think they also know. I think there's a lot of the fans because Kentucky is one and done university. We know this. This is where you go to the NBA. There's no other mindset I have it about the public. Fans may not agree with it, but that's what the public in all other 49 states believe.
Mm-hmm.
If they have to know that our fans are very split on pretty much Hagans and Hero leaving. I think by this point you made peace that Keldon's been a top 10 pick all year. PJ played out of his mind as a sophomore. He kind of paid his debt to us, I guess, if you will, for the way he played in the tournament, missing those free throws. But those two, the fan base kind of split on. I think they are well aware that if Keldon Hero, I'm mixing them. Imagine what kind of player that would be.
Right.
If Tyler Hero comes out and averages 25 plus for the tournament and shoots over 60% from 3-point line, breaking all those free throw records, and wins a title, we're going to be so much more understanding if he leaves.
Yeah, and
just think of 2012. We lost Teague and Lamb, and they had no business going pro, but because they helped get us the title, it's almost like when you're a kid and your parents are distracted and you ask them if they can go outside. They're like, yeah, go on. So because we're over here so pleased with our championship, and Hero's like, can I go pro now? We're like, yeah, go on. And we're just loving our nice number title. So I think they're aware of that too. Now, it may, at the end of the day, it may not factor into their overall decision, but I think they're kids. They care about what the public thinks of them, and they know that if they can win a title for us, they can sneak their way into the draft and not get as much pushback as, say, coming up short or losing in the Sweet 16.
Right, and just to add to your Hero point there, I don't think he needs to average 25 points a game in the tournament. He just needs to have one game, where he goes off for 29, 30 points, and then he just needs to do what he's been doing for the whole year, averaging the 12 or 13 points. I think he'll be perfectly fine because, we have seen it here. One big game in March can project, it can catapult you up 10, 13 spots.
I think the worst case scenario, in my opinion, Austin lies in me, and I'm gonna. There's many points to my thought behind this. The worst way to lose is in the Elite Eight, in my opinion, because for the most part, schools will celebrate, and even though we won't be satisfied, we'll celebrate and recognize a Final Four team. I mean, you get to the Final Four. A lot of times, once you get to the Final Four, whoever's going pro goes pro. But sometimes, if you get to the Final Four, they're just thirsty enough. They're just hungry enough to come back. You know, you look at the Terrence Jones, you look at those 2014 teams. You know, they got to the Final Four. They're all freshmen. They say, hey, one more time at this. But the Elite Eight, you kind of already had a great run. You played in 4 tournament games with everybody watching.
Right.
And you just felt like you were still so far away from the title that really the only answer is to leave.
Yeah, and
because like you don't really want to do that again.
Right, and just speaking of the Elite Eight, like there are kind of tiers that like there's that tier 1 of Final Four, and then there's tier 2 of the Sweet 16, and then like tier 4 is the Elite Eight. Like many of those Elite Eight games kind of get shuffled off to the side just because there's so much hype building up into the Sweet 16 and then the Final Four. You know, those games being the second part of the weekend, you know, it kind of gets overlooked just because there's not a lot of hype being built up for that next Elite Eight game.
It kind of goes for the champion, the runner-up too. Like, I mean, what's the difference between losing in the Final Four and losing in the national championship?
Yeah.
You all just kind of get shoved in as with college basketball. There's the winner and there's the 3 losers. Right? There's the guy that won it, and I think it's truly because of the week. Right. You know, when the Selection Sunday comes out on Sunday, well, the first real meaningful, they got those play-in games, but the meaningful game doesn't happen until Thursday. So it's 4 days of breaking it down. And then you get the first round, second round, back-to-back. Boom, it's quick.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go from, okay, these are the Sweet 16. And then boom, 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 boom. Now we're to the Final Four. There's really not that day because let's just say Kentucky has a wild game in the Sweet 16 and goes to the Elite Eight. They're going to talk about that for maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then it's on to the next great game. It's on to the next round. It's on to the Elite Eight. Once you win the Elite Eight, now we have that 4 or 5 days to talk Final Four.
Right.
Now we can talk about it. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Those even rounds, the second, fourth, and runner up, you kind of don't get a lot of shots.
And I almost want to say that the Final Four overshadows the national championship game too. To be honest,
well,
because the Final Four game on Saturday, so you have Sunday off, and you have a championship game on on Monday night. So there's really only one afternoon that like all these other sports shows, they like hype it up. So
yeah, you're absolutely right. And they, so basically what you have is the championship game is either for fans of the 2 teams or purists.
Mm-hmm.
Basketball purists. I want to watch this. Final Four, like great point. It's a Saturday thing. It's back-to-back great games. It's kind of, this is my evening.
Right.
It's kind of like the Christmas Eve of December. Christmas is great. Don't get me wrong. But after you've opened up the gift, it's all cooking and running around.
Right.
Christmas Eve kind of the day that should get the glory. That's kind of how the Final Four is because that's that Saturday. By the time you get to that Monday, you're only going to get, like your point, you're only going to get the one day of sports shows where it's, who do you have, what happens this. And if you got a big program like a Zion Williams or there's a Kentucky in it, the whole time is going to be spent talking about, does this make Cal elite now with 2 championships, or is Zion Williams the greatest? Because it becomes a one-sided story, opposed to what you would have if you made the Final Four, where they spend all week breaking down each games, and Monday they talk about the recap, and Tuesday they talk about the future, and Wednesday they talk about matchup. So you're absolutely right. It's almost like if you're not going to win it, just give me the Final Four and let me get my weekend start. Like, let me save my Monday night.
Exactly.
So,
just to ask you a question here. Let's say when Kentucky makes it to the championship game, and we're playing a kind of a lower name team, like I don't know. I mean, yeah, I know Gonzaga has been ranked, top 5 like all year, and they've beaten Duke earlier this season. But many people don't know a lot about them because they're on the West Coast. They play at 2:00 in the morning. Do you think Kentucky would get overshadowed in the media if that were to happen? Like, they'd be talking about the Zags more than Cal and Keldon Johnson and PJ and all that good stuff.
No, I think Kentucky will always rule everything. I mean, now obviously I think this year the only thing that would get more hype would be Duke and Zion, a healthy Duke with Zion. But I think Kentucky over any team at any round is going to get that media hype, which, leads me to a huge frustration is everybody wants to play Kentucky the victim that, the NCAA is out to get us. And I really can never get behind that.
Yeah, I mean,
because Kentucky, they love Kentucky. Now, granted, Kentucky better not slip up because they would love nothing more than cutting us down. And people are like, but North Carolina cheats and you never get any coverage. North Carolina really shouldn't be spoken in the same breath as us. And a lot of times, because North Carolina is up there, but I think they're kind of like underneath. They're more of a last couple of years thing. Because this is some frustrations I've been dealing with. They talked about that, when North Carolina was in trouble for all that stuff, they didn't talk about the violations on ESPN. Well, that's because North Carolina's violations really wasn't an ESPN thing.
Right.
It really wasn't a sports thing. It was classroom. Now, ESPN is going to announce it, like, hey, this is what's going on. But they're not going to bring in a college professor. That's not what ESPN does, right? Like, now, if you start cheating in basketball, you start throwing some money under the table to a basketball player, ESPN's going to stick their nose in it.
Right.
But even then, only to a point. Mike, I mentioned, I don't know if you caught wind of it or seen it, I mentioned the hated Matthew Lyle because I am kind of hated right now.
Hey,
because
always love you, buddy.
I appreciate that. Well, because I'm getting tired of just the blanket statement of Kentucky's the victim and no one is. And I hate that as a Kentucky fan, but it's getting frustrating. Because, example, because we talked about it, Duke is getting the benefit of the doubt with Zion being hurt. But Kentucky did last year as well. We had 10 losses, and we were a 5 seed in the South, which is Atlanta, only because of the potential of Jared Vanderbilt coming back.
Right.
I mean, 2014, it happened with Michigan guys. It's happened before. This isn't some role they just pulled out of you-know-what to make Duke happy. This is something they do. Now, the moment a player's done for good, torn ACL, broken leg, some kind of back neck injury, they're going to start taking that into account. But if it's an ankle, a knee, a tweak, they're going to give you the benefit of the doubt because they look at the big picture. So, but what I wanted to bring up, the point I brought up, and it's another point I will say, and I'm curious to know your thoughts on this, Mike. Everybody wants to say that without the NCAA colluding or without CBS paying off the refs, where's your 10 hats, ladies and gentlemen, that Duke wouldn't have 5 national titles. Well, I'm actually going to say, and I'm telling you, Mike, this got me hated, but if you think about it, there's some truth to it. Look at every national title that Duke has except their first one. So 1992, they won the title. Kentucky could have beat them. We didn't stop Christian Laettner. 2001, Duke won a national title. Kentucky was in the same bracket as them. We got upset in the Sweet 16 by USC. Now, I don't know if we could have beat that 2001 team, but I guarantee you we would have gave them a better run than USC did. 2010, 2015, Kentucky has been the far better team. That 2010 team with Wall, Bledsoe, Cousins, and Patterson was much better than that Duke team. We just got upset. That 2015 platoon team would have mopped the floor with Duke. We just couldn't get past Wisconsin. So what I'm saying is, and 99% of the fan base has never played a second for Kentucky, and that's fine. I haven't either. I get that. Ain't nothing we did wrong. But before you start saying that that's an NCAA thing, that the NCAA wants to cheat and make this happen, you got to kind of look at yourself. if we had lived up to our potential, Mike, Duke's just looked up with the likes of Syracuse and Arizona, the best team with one title. We kind of let down as a team and came up short. And I just find it so ridiculous. And I'll be honest with you, if you have the mindset, anybody listening, which by now they probably then shut it off if they were listening. If you have the mindset that the NCAA is against Kentucky and wants nothing more than Kentucky to lose, which I don't know why they would think that, but if that is your mindset, I feel sorry for you. I truly do, because you cannot enjoy the tournament. Because if you're going into the tournament with the predetermined mindset that they're out, that there's no way we can win because of the system, then why are you watching March? Mike, me and you'll talk that if we have a bad shooting day, we may lose. If we play a good defensive team, we may lose. If we play healthy Duke and don't bring it, we may lose.
Right.
But there's a chance that we don't, that we have a good shooting night, that we play great defense, that we're able to be better than Duke. So that gives me motivation to watch, because there's the bad, but there's also the good. If you automatically believe, like a villain in a movie, that we're the character written to die the first, then why are you watching? Then how do you get enjoyment out of it? Because
that's
you've
just
already
pure
made up your
craziness,
mind.
Honestly. Let's be honest.
It is, Mike. Right. Thank you.
Because let me shed some light on this here. The NCAA is all about making cash at the end of the day. You can say what you want to say. They are in it to make cash. They are the biggest corporate world corporate sponsor that the March Madness tournament has, and they want these big names in there because our fan base travels so well. The Duke fan base travels so well. The Wisconsin fan base travels well. The Kansas State fan base travels really well. They want these big names in there in the Sweet 16, in the Final Four, so they can sell more tickets, so they can sell more sponsorships. Think about this. I'm going to skate back a little bit to what we said earlier, that we think the Final Four is bigger than the championship game. Think about this. You have Duke versus Kentucky in the Final Four. You know how much hype that game is going to get. You know how much talking about that game is going to get. Think about all the corporate sponsors they can get out of that, all the corporate tickets. Granted, yes, the Final Four is probably going to get sold out either way, but those tickets go sky high. We're looking at $5,000 courtside seat tickets. That's all extra money in the NCAA's pocket. Why would they want Kentucky to lose in the second round? Why would they want Duke to lose in the second round? Come on, think clearly, guys. Don't.
Well, exactly. And think about this, Mike. What is the worst case scenario for the NCAA if Kentucky makes the Final Four?
They're playing.
What's the worst thing that happens?
They're playing Seton Hall.
No.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm talking about in the NCAA. If the NCAA looks at the Final Four, and I'm picturing the way these people talk, I'm picturing the NCAA as the evil Cobra guy off of G.I. Joe. He's stinking Kentucky. He's shaking his fist, petting his cat, and he's just sitting there. And I'm thinking, okay, worst case scenario, if Kentucky makes the Final Four, is absolutely nothing. Best case scenario is we are a ridiculous fan base, and we're going to travel in drones and pay a ridiculous price to get in. What do you think the NCAA wants more? To have some personal vendetta that's somehow been in play for 50 years, like the Illuminati runs it or something? Or have tons of fan base pack the stadium chanting "Go Big Blue" and have an ESPN coverage?
Right,
I wonder what's more.
Well, right, look, and just to add, just 1 second, just to add to that, to that other side, I almost want to say they kind of sketch out the bracket just a tad bit, and they had the big names, going to the Sweet 16, to the Final Four. They are more worried about looking at the Sweet 16 matchups and the Final Four matchups because of the media coverage that they are going to get. Would you rather see I don't know, Chicago of Illinois, or Loyola versus Seton Hall in the Sweet 16, or or would you rather see Kansas State versus Kentucky? Like, guys,
Right.
there is no vendetta against Kentucky. They want Kentucky to make it to the Final Four. They want Duke to make it to the Final Four. They want North Carolina to make it to the Final Four. And I don't know, maybe a Gonzaga just because they need a team from that side of the country because they think they'll travel too. I mean, come on.
That's what I was thinking. I think that if the NCAA had their way, Mike, it would be the Final Four bracket would be the same thing every year. On one side, it would be Duke, North Carolina, because that does sell tickets. That's one of the greatest rivalries. And if you get that in the Final Four,
you see that five times in a year or four times in a year. Heck yeah, that is selling.
Yeah, and then the other side would be Kentucky, and then it would alternate by region. You know, eventually you'd give us a Syracuse, and then you'd give us a Kansas to get the Midwest, and then you'd give us a Gonzaga, an Arizona to make the West happy. You know, but those three blue bloods, if the NCAA had their way, would be there every year. And then maybe every once in a while you'd be like, if the NCAA had their way, they'd throw in a George Mason just to say, oh, see, look, anybody can do it.
They are happy to put those teams in this. They are happy to put those teams in the Sweet 16, and that's as far as they want them to go because they want that. They want that media coverage from George Mason or from the Chicago area or even Oregon. I mean, like, yeah, we can give you guys a week coverage on that, but once the Final Four happens, you know, we want
let
these
the big
teams.
boys come.
Yeah.
Well, because like I don't know, that's just it's ridiculous, and I had the conversation with somebody. I get how it looks because as a fan, you could play Louisville High School, who's at Trinity, just won the state championship. You could play them, and you're still nervous because you don't ever want to lose in March. But you have to understand, this is March. This is the march to the tournament. No pun intended, or maybe it was intended. I don't know. But you have to expect that, just like tournaments should, you're going to play good teams, and that those good teams are going to get increasingly better as the rounds advance. I was having a discussion. Somebody said, "Oh, the 2014 team. You know, you look at that, or the 2015 team, who was overall number one. They put us in the hardest bracket." And I got to looking, and I said, "I have to disagree because." There was one top 10 team. It was Kentucky. There was two top 15 teams. That was Kentucky and then Kansas. And then the rest wasn't. So you look at – and I'm not downplaying it because it's March. You're going to eventually have to play somebody good. And then you go look at the East bracket, which had, I think, Villanova was number one. Virginia was number two, but was the overall number 5 seed. You know, it was just a very tough bracket. And the person's response was, "Oh, well, it felt like tough opponents." Well, of course it's going to feel like tough opponents.
These are the best 64 teams. Well, allegedly best 64 teams.
Right, allegedly, yeah. But even when you get to the Sweet 16, you're either playing the best or the hottest 16 teams in the country.
Exactly.
You're not going to – and to be honest with you, you could – if you wanted to be absurd and make a point, oh, Kentucky's Kentucky, we deserve to play Buffalo – and we deserve to play Miami of Ohio, and we deserve to play. Then I'm going to say point to last year. Last year, you were the top team in the bracket. You played I forgot who we played in that first round. We played Dayton. We were the 5 seed. They were the 12 seed. The 4 seed lost, so we got to play another double-digit seed in Buffalo. The 1 seed got embarrassed, which means we then had to play the 8 seed with the number 11 seed waiting on the winner. Like, that would have been the easiest bracket run ever. And we didn't get it done. Like if you want to play double-digit bad teams, look at last year's bracket, Mike, the one that we were in. You had double interest because K-State was in it. They were nothing but low seeds. Seeds 1, 2, 3, and 4 were gone by the first weekend.
Yeah.
And you still couldn't get there? So what does it matter who we face? Yeah.
Yeah, and just to add to your point there, I'm more scared of a double-digit team than I am versus a 2 or a 3 seed. Just because you know what those 2, 3, 4, and 5 seed teams bring usually. Those 11, 12, even 16 seed teams, you don't know what they bring, because usually you are looking past them. You're like, oh, they just got in here because they won their conference. So you are normally overlooking those teams. You play sluggish, and you're like, oh man, these guys about beat us. Maybe we aren't as good as we thought we were. And then you come out the next Saturday and you do the same thing, and you lay an egg. I want to play Duke. I want to play North Carolina. I want to play Kansas. Like I would rather have the hardest road to the Final Four, to the championship, just because I know the games are going to be exciting. Our kids are going to show up and actually want to play, and we aren't going to be overlooking anybody. So I would rather take a hard road than an easy road any day of the week.
All you have to do, Mike, is look at history under Cal with the type of kids that he likes coaching. 2010, on top of the world. No one can beat us. We got beat by a underdog West Virginia team. 2011, we beat number one team in the country, Ohio State. We beat a very good team in North Carolina, only to lose to an underdog UConn team. 2014, we've been through this. We beat undefeated Wichita State. We beat our rivals in Louisville. We beat one of the top teams in the country in Wisconsin, and then one of the hottest team countries in Michigan. I think I got those flipped. Who do we lose to? The only team that the fans, that the media picked us to beat, UConn.
Right.
15. We were the best team in the country, got beat by a sleeping, hungrier Wisconsin team. So the signs point. The only time that I can think that we went out there and lost to a better team in March was 2017, because I think that North Carolina team was the best team in the country. But we played them to the very end of the wire, lost on a last second shot that I don't want to talk about. So if you're a fan, you want to see the bracket of death, which I think has been coined. Which, you know where all this comes from, and I love it. Let's just stop where this comes from. And I think it shows you how smart the man is. John Calipari. Because John Calipari, look, you can say what you want about it, who's the best coach in the country, who's this, who's that. There has never been a more perfect job than Kentucky and John Calipari. Because everything he says is for the right person to hear. When he comes out after Selection Sunday, he's going to do it. The moment during Selection Sunday, I guarantee you, Mike, Cal will be on there. They do it to all the top coaches. He's going to talk about how young his team is. He's got to set that up. And don't get me wrong, I'm not hating. I love this.
Yep.
He's going to talk about how young his team is. Got to set up that little cushion. Got to set up that seed of doubt. He's going to rile the fan base. And how else does the fan base do it? How do you rile up your fan base? How do you go out here and win things when popularity is contested? You create a villain. John Calipari is going to create that villain. The NCAA, the committee, and the seed of death, or the bracket of death.
Right.
That's what you do, and it's great. Just like I defended him when everybody said when Calipari came out and said, I would rather have guys go pro than win a national championship. Fans went nuts, and I was like, guys, calm down. He's not talking to you. He's talking to mamas.
Right.
He's talking to parents. He's talking to grandmas whose kids.
He's talking to the eighth grader.
Yeah. He's talking to mom. Do I want to send my kid across country? Oh, he's got my son's best interest? Absolutely, I do. So that's what kind of simmer down all that talk we had.
Let me add to that real quick here. As a fan base, this is kind of a I'm kind of casting a broad cast here. As fans, the fans that are saying this, do you guys want to win by every game by 30 points and just cakewalk to the championship and then get beat? Or do you want to have a hard road to the championship and just enjoy March? Enjoy this last month of the season that we have. Guys, there's only 4 weeks left in the season. April 5th is the championship game, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. So we have less than a month in the college basketball season. Do you want these last 6-7 games to be exciting, Or do you want them to be 30-point blowouts and we lose in the final four? Or do you want a hard road and a championship?
Well, Mike, you're not going to get that because, much like fans, I mentioned to somebody today that being a fan is like being a parent. It's fine to love and support your team and child, but I think you also do more damage than good when you create false villains. When Kentucky lost to LSU not because of a bad call, not because of the ref. That's what ended the game. What lost us the game was having an 8-point lead, as in realizing you want to shoot the dumbest 3-point shots out. That's what lost the game.
Or do we lose because they're paying players?
That's it. But even then, it don't matter. You had them beat. Like you had them beat, and then you decide you want to shoot. Like Reed Travis wants to start airballing 3-pointers. Like that's what loses you the game.
Right.
So let's. And I'm not saying you've got to say anything negative about them, but let's just look at what it was. But no, to your point, Mike, a lot of the fan base is going to be so reactionary that if we go out there and if we played a bracket that resembled last year's bracket, and we won every game by 30, it's not going to be, hey, let's make sure we don't get caught sleeping. They're going to be like, the greatest team ever.
Right.
And then when you lose,
the
these equal
guys suck.
hate
Fire
comes
Cal.
out. Calipari's overrated. This is why I miss the good old days. Like, no. And another thing that gets me, and this isn't just our fans, this is just sports fans in general, you got to stay up to date on the name on the front of the jersey. If we get put in a bracket with Kansas, that doesn't mean anything because Kansas isn't having a year like they usually do. If UCLA's our 8th seed, which I don't even think UCLA can get in it, but if they're our 8th seed, you don't get up, or Arizona's the 8th seed, you don't get upset, oh, this is a bracket of death, because this isn't 1997.
Right.
Or because I think that's what happened. Because here's my fear. You put Houston in our bracket, which I would be mad. If Houston's our 3 seed, that's when I start getting upset because Houston's a darn good team.
Yeah. Even though they did lose Saturday, I mean, they're still a really good team.
They lose. Teams lose.
Yeah.
But what happens is people's going to look at the front of the jersey and be like, oh, this team's bad. I've never even heard of them.
Yeah.
And then when you lose to a good team, I don't know, Mike. That's just frustrating. One thing I want to close on, my thought, I think, Mike, load up your tour bus, put on your sunglasses and your sunscreen, because I think Kentucky is going on a revenge tour.
There we go.
I think a revenge tour is going to start. And some of this is serious. Some I think is a bit of a reach. But hear me out, Mike. Trip to a national championship will begin Friday versus Alabama. They beat us in Tuscaloosa. Revenge start now.
Saturday, ding.
Tennessee, baby. We beat them. Sure, we beat them, but they beat us last. It's time for the tiebreaker. Give it to us.
Ding.
Sunday, LSU. Revenge is happening. Revenge tour. NCAA tournament starts. First round. This may not be, some of you younger fans may not, what's he talking about? Go back to Gillespie, Gardner-Webb. One of the brackets I looked at had us playing a 16-seed Gardner-Webb. The last time we played them, we probably played them since then, but the more meaningful time, Billy Gillespie's first game gets embarrassed by Gardner-Webb. Revenge time, the different time, we're beating them out of their brains. First round. In the second round, Mike, Memphis. Ooh. They hate Cal. They hate our fan base. They want to beat us. Boom, we're going to put you down. That Sweet 16, Mike, we've talked about it before. Wisconsin. 2015 still's in the back of my head. Get that revenge. Elite Eight, Duke, need I say more. Final Four, you're going to like this one, Mike. Revenge, K-State, and then championship game. Doesn't matter because we'll be champions. Bathe in the glory. Revenge tour. Start up the bus.
Hey, I'm getting it warm for you. It's a brisk 55 degrees outside. I'll be sure to have the heater set for you at 76 degrees, man.
Loving it. Revenge tour. Mike, any closing thoughts for it?
No, guys, yes, in theory, Matthew, I love your revenge tour. I like our idea, but fans don't freak out if we do get beat in the SEC championship game. we're still going to be a number 1 seed if we make it to the championship game. And let's say if Reed Travis he doesn't play and we make it to the championship game, that's very, very encouraging. That means we have learned how to play without Reed. And if he happens to get in foul trouble during the tournament, or if he can't come back, we'll be A-okay.
I'll be honest with you, Mike. I get what you're saying. I get the pump the brakes mentality. But really, I think if we beat Tennessee, the SEC championship's ours. Now, the only thing that does kind of scare me is Auburn. Because I think the Final Four of the SEC tournament is going to be LSU versus Auburn and Kentucky versus Tennessee.
Right.
You've said it a lot, Mike. Third time around, I'm a little nervous. Just saying.
Well, mate, before we sign off here, let me ask you about LSU. Do you think they are as solid team as people think they are with their coach out and their and that smart guy out as well? Do you think they're still a top 10 team?
I mean, I think they are. I think they will. I think they'll show it. I'm not as comfortable with them pulling off the big upset. I think what happens is they fall in line now. I think, they'll get to the SEC championship game. I think they'll lose to Kentucky or Tennessee. I think they'll become a 3 seed in the bracket. They'll beat whoever they're supposed to beat, but then they'll lose to the higher seed. When they were fully healthy, before all this came, and I mean healthy like with the entire situation, before all this came about with Will Wade and the smart guy, I was thinking this team can upset Duke. This team can upset North Carolina because they got that size. I don't think it's going to happen now because to do that upset, you're going to have to do some things. Like you're going to have some players. You're going to have the coach. You're going to have to everything's going to have to be hitting on all cylinders. I think the team's athletically and long enough to beat the downtrodden seeds. I just no longer think they're going to be able to pull off the big upset that I once thought they could do. I thought before this was a Final Four Elite Eight style team.
Right.
I think they're now just your run-of-the-mill Sweet 16, probably be a 3 seed, might lose to the right 6 seed, probably be a close game, and then we'll run into a 2 seed, Michigan State, North Carolina type, and get run out the building because when you're trying to pull off upset, you got to bring it mentally and physically.
Right.
And I think with everything going around, mentally will not be an option.
And I think I'm on the other side of that coin. I think those players have something to prove. They prove that just one player getting paid isn't going to make or break their team. Sorry, allegedly getting paid does not make or break their team. So I think they might kind of be on a revenge tour too. So, I would be I'm actually really intrigued to play them in the championship game just to see what team shows up. Are they going to be hungry, or are they going to be like, you know what, we're done. Like we lost our coach, we lost our, So I think it's going to be one side or the other. Either they're going to get beat early, or they're going to go a long way.
I think so much in life, Mike, and I think this is where our points are going to kind of blend together. So often in life, it's never as good as you say and never as bad as you say. It's always just kind of in the middle. And I think realistically looking, that's probably what's going to happen. It is when the going's good. It's like anything else. When you suffer any kind of sadness or controversy in your life, let's take something that's pretty trivial. A breakup. You're going through a breakup, not a divorce, nothing crazy, but just going through a breakup. When you're hanging out with your buddies and life's going good, you're at the top of your world. Can't be touched. I'm glad I broke up. But when you're at the house alone, when something sad comes on, you then kind of go to your lowest of lows. And I think that's what you're going to see here. When they're beating up on a team, I think you're going to see what you said, that hunger. But when, like for example, SEC championship versus Kentucky or versus Tennessee, both teams that feel like they got cheated and lost, what you're going to have is that team, the team they're playing is going to come out equally as strong. And when Kentucky gets that 10, 14-point lead because Kentucky's hungry, that's where you're going to see them fall apart. That's when the bad kicks in. That's when our fans are chanting. And I think our fans would be have some class, but they're still going to take advantage. They're going to start chanting something silly, or maybe it's any fan base. That's when the bad gets bad, and that's when you go from losing 10 to losing by 30.
I can see whoever they play in the first round there, they might throw money on the court.
I think it's Florida and Arkansas, but you got to remember these are college kids. I don't know how much money they got to be throwing around.
I'm just saying, if they're making way up to Nashville, they're probably okay in the pocketbook.
And that's a point we were talking earlier about the conspiracy idea. Just look at a smaller scale. The SEC champions or tournament has sold out. Like, good luck finding the ticket.
Right.
But and I'm just saying this as a scenario. Let Tennessee and Kentucky lose in their first round matchup. Let Ole Miss beat Kentucky, and then whoever's playing Tennessee beat Tennessee, and then you have a Final Four that includes a downtrodden LSU and no Kentucky, no Tennessee. Mike, you'll be able to walk off the street and sit where you want for free.
Right.
Like those tickets, people can't get rid of those tickets fast enough. People be out there like Oprah. You get a ticket. You get a ticket. They'd be using that as tax write-off.
Adding to that point, you guys want to talk about conspiracies here. We were scared of the LSU team. Like about a month ago, you had them as a Final Four team. They were a very, very solid team. They were playing well. Maybe the NCAA is like, hey, we don't want them knocking out Duke or North Carolina or like Kentucky. Hey, so for those people saying that the tournament bracket committee is looking out for Kentucky right now, guys. I'm not saying LSU would have beat us by any means.
I like that, Mike. Yeah, because you're right. Because it does, and then if you could tear them down. Now, the thing I will say is, if you want a blanket statement that the NCAA is fishy, dirty, scammy, yeah, like I'll give you that, because I think, for example, if they had the audio files of every coach in college basketball cheating, they would burn it quickly. Like they don't want that out. Like they want, but it's not. I don't think it's against one team or the other. I think it's against a cluster of the top teams. If you gave them a file, and this is going to be kind of like my last thought on this, Mike. If you gave them a file, and inside that file was unequivocal, undeniable proof of Kentucky, North Carolina, Duke, and Kansas all cheating, and you gave them the option to do whatever they want with that file, you will never convince me that they're going to pick out Kentucky and be like, here, they cheated, and then get rid of the rest. No, right. They're getting rid of that entire file. Now, the truth is they should say, hey, we got 4 cheaters on our hand, let's put a stop to it. But they're not. They're going to throw that whole file out of the way. What you won't get me to believe is that they're going to pick one team out, put them on blast, and then just hide the other 3.
Well,
like, I'll never buy into that.
Well, and just to add to your point, if you remember right, it was this time last year when all that FBI stuff started to come out. I believe there was a couple ESPN analysts said, if everything were to come out right now in the tournament of 64, there would only be 16 teams eligible to play.
Yeah.
So
and the NCAA does not want that.
Right. Exactly.
The NCAA. If the NCAA, and it's ironic, if the NCAA gives you a Final Four that includes Loyola Chicago like it did last year, they want it to be because of what happened last year.
Yeah.
Because of upsets, and they went on a hot streak. They don't want Loyola Chicago being a 1 seed. You can say what you want. Oh, Virginia's a good team. The NCAA could care less about Virginia's run.
Right.
Virginia's not selling out that place. So I don't know. We can talk about this all day. I think.
Yeah. Just to add to your point, there, you can kind of see that the NCAA is trying to sweep this under the rug. Because look at the Arizona coach; he was on tape last year saying
Bill Self too.
saying we'll give that guy $100,000, and he's still coaching. He coached all of last year. He's still coaching now. And Arizona, I think they're 16th, 17th if I'm not mistaken. They're still a pretty solid team. So I mean, just to add to that point, the NCAA is trying to sweep this under the rug. So I think they're going to try to pick out a few select teams, LSU, Louisville, maybe Arizona, and kind of make an example out of them and call it quits.
Yeah, I actually, I think that they had the best thing rolling. The NCAA had the best thing they could have. And if I'm a Louisville fan, I'm upset about this. I think they had Louisville with the Katina Powell situation, then the Brian Bowen situation, and that was an isolated incident. For about a week there, we only thought Louisville was the dirtiest college ever. Like, we just thought they were the worst.
Right.
Which, you could still think that. But, it didn't look like that was the only thing going on. For that week, the NCAA was happy because Louisville's a team that's big enough but not a blue blood, so you can make an example.
They're in a Power 5 conference.
Right. They were already on the decline. Rick Pitino put out the door, kind of starting to lose in the Sweet 16 type game. For that situation, the NCAA would have loved to come down on them like a ton of bricks and basically send fear to the other 500 schools, however many they are in Division I. Because what that does is they say, hey, we did this to Louisville. What do you think we'll do to you, Buffalo? And what do you think we'll do to you, LSU?
Yeah.
But what happened was other big names started to pop up. And NCAA wants to make a lesson out of Louisville, not so much out of Kentucky, Duke, North Carolina, Kansas.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, just one point here. Like, if those other schools wouldn't have came out, I think LSU would have gotten their foot their foot on the neck, and it would have been crushed, just like SMU happened to them back in 91, 92 time frame, the Pony Express and all that stuff. So honestly, maybe these other teams coming out is good for everybody. So maybe the pay for play thing.
I wanted to see Louisville get the harshest death penalty out. I wanted to see them.
That won't happen.
But what I still think is going to happen is I still think they're going to punish Louisville harder than everybody. Then for the first offense, I just think the second offense is everything going to get kind of clumped together and swept under the rug.
Yeah.
But that's everything for me. Mike, you have any closing thoughts for us?
No, guys, just be sure to root on the Cats. We'll be playing Friday afternoon, right, at 5, 4, 5?
That's 6 Eastern time, 7 Central, 7 Eastern time, 6 Central time.
There you go. A prime time game.
If you're in Kansas, Mike, it'll be 5 o'clock.
I won't be in Kansas. I'm boycotting Kansas. They are sitting my man.
There you go.
Wade. Oh, I'm so mad.
There you go. Loving it. That's it. Big Blue Breakdown. Catch us next time. SEC edition. Next episode. We're out.
Go Cats.